Yeah, we're live on Twitch. And are we live on LinkedIn?
We're live on YouTube.
We're also on YouTube? God damn, we're going places with this.
We are. We are. Okay, all right, but can we do this part? Do y'all hear any music? Is it
Nope.
just me?
No.
Just
Okay.
dance.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, yay!
Hey!
We are so glad that you're with us today because it has been an experience getting you here. Thank you for those of you who have rejoined us as we've had technical issues, which, when I'm running the podcast, that day is not a surprise and hasn't been for the past 5 years. So, welcome to the Underground Game QA podcast, a podcast about quality assurance in the video game industry. My name is Chelsea Curran Adams, and my pronouns are she, her, and I will be your unfortunate host for today's show. I say unfortunate because you know there are going to be bloopers, and we have more on board for you. Today, we have 3 incredible OMG veterans, board members, friends, and family of the Underground Game QA podcast, the real OGs. These 3 are here today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
I'll start. Hello, my name is David Benefield. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm currently a QA lead at Obsidian Entertainment.
Hey, my name is Marcin, and my pronouns are he, him.
Howdy, folks. My name is Diarmaid, but frequently people call me Water. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a senior QA specialist at Playerunknown Productions.
Welcome, friends. We're so glad to see you again as close friends and board members and volunteers and folks who are very familiar here. Thank you for your time, as always. This is my least favorite part because I stumble over my words, but disclaimer. All individuals appearing on the podcast are not doing so as official representatives of their respective companies, employers, clients, customers, or any third parties, and the opinions expressed here are their own. Nothing in the podcast is intended to be tax, legal, financial, or employment advice, and this production is presented for information and entertainment purposes only. For professional advice, seek out a professional. There we go. So
Though
today...
I think we should do, after like 20 years, after all our companies are gone from existence, do a retrospective on our companies.
I like this idea of having a life retro. I will hopefully be retired in 20 years. That's my hopeful 28-year anniversary show. And I'll be retired with a lot of goats around me or something like that. What? You say that like it's... that look was big.
No, goats. Yeah, go for goats. I
Go goats.
The goats, sure.
Well. All right. So today we're looking at the past 5 years. And I cannot believe it has been 5 years. That's crazy. And so just to let you know, some stats here, we have tons of members. In fact, over 2,000 folks have joined the community from our original 50-person seat little conference that we were going to have. More on the history later. But also, I have some strong feelings that it's not just the U.S. anymore, something that started out as a group of folks, meeting in a specific location. All of us are in different places. Marcin, where are you broadcasting from right now?
From Poland, but probably when I was doing a compilation for bloopers for us, I think I switched like 4 apartments during that time, so...
I think I've lived in as many as well. David, where are you coming from?
I'm coming from Tustin, California. That is Southern California area.
Water.
I'm coming from Derry, Northern Ireland.
And I'm here in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. So, even on the broadcasts, we're varied in location, time zone. And so it's been amazing to see how we've grown and changed and continued to influence folks across the world. I recognize that, we really have focused on creating video content early on, and now it's become a 24-hour global thing where there are messages in the Discord when we wake up. And, you know, it's a 24/7 deal. And I can't wait to digest more of this with y'all in the coming show. But first, let's talk about the lightning round. What is the most memorable moment or part or piece for you being a part of this community?
So I'll start stuff off. We have this awesome resume channel, resume and cover letters channel, but during one particularly nasty round of layoffs that we've suffered a lot in the past few years, Ariel organized a resume review workshop. So we got together over the weekend, set up a just Discord event. Hey, drop in if you have cover letters, resumes. Let's look at them. And I was acting as a hiring manager at the time, so I'd just come off fresh from interviewing and being able to say, okay, I now know exactly what I'm looking for, and being able to get back to people who were in an unfortunate situation was just great. And as much as I enjoy the resume channel and I drop in and out of that when I can, being able to just do it live with some folks and be like, hey, we are here, active, having the back and forth with them over a call was just awesome. So that's the one that always sticks out to me. It's like, that's what this community feels like to me, being able to just jump in and do something with folks.
For me, it was various discussions that we had over the years within the community. And special shout outs to Joe and Garrett, with whom I had the most heated discussions over the years, to the point where sometimes either Garrett has to be like Marcin, Joe, whoa, like I think you're getting too heated, and we're like with Joe, like, oh, it's fine, and then vice versa. But even though sometimes the topics get even very spicy, or we discuss very difficult topics, it's still professional. It's still, you know, end the discussion with either thoughts changed or with something new or being a better person. So I really love whenever we have those discussions, and that's always the best part of this community for me.
I think for me, it's got to be the monthly beverage hour, whether that's a coffee or some water or just hanging out for a chat. Some of the best conversations I've had is kind of like you said, David, the kind of synchronous side of things. The messages are great. The spicy topics are really interesting to read. But being able to connect with other professionals on a regular basis and drop in and have a chat is something that definitely makes you feel less isolated, especially when you're like many of us working remotely. You might not be in an office with people all the time. You don't get to see your professionals, your colleagues in this industry all the time. So that monthly beverage hour is a highlight for me for sure.
Yeah, for Sarah, who is someone who's behind the scenes, you'll see her inside of the chat as Lady Odd Duck. You'll frequently see her as Sarah G inside of the Discord. I asked her this question because she's such a big part of what we do, and she mentioned that her favorite moments in the community have been the days where we have an active Twitch chat. So if you're in the Twitch chat, give us a holler right now. Sarah deserves that. And I think you can see this is reflected in some of our best episodes as well, when people are engaged with our hosts and guests, asking questions and talking to each other. The whole episode feels alive, and it's awesome to not just have not just our guests contributing to the episode, but to see the community participating as well. You help shape what we do, who we are, and what we talk about, and that's the most incredible part of this community for me. And dang, I can't say it any better than that. That is my favorite part too. And, you know, we started this, it's us giving our weekend time, just like y'all give time when you're giving time in the Discord to answer questions or to do reviews. And, you know, to add on to what Sarah has, it's the opportunity to help each other and to get help. I've gotten a job from the job board in our community. I've gotten advice. Y'all have been there on my bad days. You've been there on my great days when I can give back more than I've taken. And, you know, for me, it's just, I'm so thankful, so incredibly thankful to all of you for being engaged, whether you're there daily. You know, I think about Joe, Raphael, Alexander, Sarah, thinking about Ariel's advice, sage advice on things, thinking about all of our more senior members who chime in, and to the folks who are brand new. Like, all of those things matter. And so, we're not here without you. It's a entirely volunteer organization. And so we get what we get from everyone contributing. And so, thanks for that. And so, yeah, thank you everyone for sharing with that. Anyone have anything to add to anyone's ideas that they shared?
I love that our community, like as you mentioned, like it's full of senior veterans, but also like new people coming in the industry, and we have this whole range of different people from different backgrounds and on different stage of their life. And whenever you have a discussion point or a question or whatever, like you get from different various perspectives, and that's really awesome to have that in the community. Like it's, I don't know, like this is, like I want to say like tribal in a sense, where you have a whole village of wonderful QA people, and sometimes a person will come in and, hey, I need to help with a test plan, or could you review my CV? And there's always someone to chime in and give their perspective and a helping hand. I guess that's what I want.
Yeah, I brought this up when we were having a community discussion last week with some folks talking about topics in there, and I love the feeling of being in a sandwich. Is that I'm a QA lead. I've been in the industry for about 12 years now, and so there's a billion things I can still learn, and there are people in that channel who know these things, have experienced things, have held higher positions, different positions. So I feel like I'm constantly learning, but I'm also in a position that I can give back to others, and I like the dichotomy of that I am giving and receiving at the same time. I really feel that if it was just one side of that equation or the other, I would not be nearly as active. But the fact that I can both give and take is a great feeling for the community.
Yeah. I think, the chat's kind of busy chiming along here. And so if you get the chance again, check out the Twitch chat. But also, if you're here listening because you're a listener, what's really good is when I hear, hey, your episode on X, Y, and Z was really good. And we'll get into more of that in a moment. But for those of you who are just listening and not watching our silly dances, like, you're also a part of this. And, thank you to friends and family who are not even in QA, who are like, hey, can I listen to what you're doing? That's awesome. And also very heartwarming to hear people who say, like, I just want to know more about what you do. Or young people who say, like, hey, I just want to know more about what you do. And so, to second, third, 15th, what Marcin and David have said about this, like, it's about the community and it's about y'all. And, we're thankful. We're so thankful for that. All right, friends. I'm going to go into some history, but first, I want to show off what I think the most hilarious part of starting this podcast has been. And I guarantee you there's going to be a blooper right here because I have to figure out how to technically do this. So hold on one second while I cue this up. For those of you who are listening, we'll have the videos posted on YouTube, so you can take a gander at them anytime you want over there on YouTube. We'll have it in Twitch, in the Twitch stream. So I guarantee you're not going to want to miss this. Let me share my screen, in theory, if I can do that and figure it out. Oh my goodness.
Always have a betting session open before the episode. If
real talk. And you should. And you should.
And all the proceedings should go to like a charity. That would be a thing.
Real. Also real. Okay, wait. It went away. No.
Everyone gets a randomly generated bingo card of all the possible bloopers.
We ready? Let's
We're
go.
ready.
Hitting music.
I love it so much.
Talking about diversity of engagement. I love it.
I love when a guest sees one of the hosts just slowly vibing and they just get it to the next level.
Yeah. Danny, she did an amazing job there. You can see her just all of a sudden get it. Like, so many guests have just taken it to the next level. And, you know, there's no better way to kick off talking about how we got here than talking about our intro. That music is free licensed music. It is not anything that is unique. Possibly, I don't know, maybe we're the only podcast who uses this music, but that is officially our music. We've even got outro music, but the number of times we've actually remembered to use the outro music, I think, is a little bit lower. So thank you to all of our dancing guests who've been on the show. We hope that you're bopping along there at home. And Marcin, thank you for making that compilation when I could not figure out how to do it. It was going to be a lot more of a mess with my version of that. Let's just tell you that. And that was a mess enough.
Thanks for my past of being a video editor at one point.
So let's talk about how we got here. I'm going to do another surprise lightning round for y'all that I didn't prepare you for, which was, when did you get involved with the community? Do you remember what year? Or we're going to talk about some of that possibly later, so not too many spoilers, but do you remember when you got involved with the community?
I remember it was one of the first episodes that you did on Twitch. I don't remember which one, though. I don't think I was on the first one. But I think it was either second or third when I started, when I heard about you doing this. And then you reacting, that was, I think, the most important part about it. It was you reacting to chat, because I think I just commented on something.
Yeah.
And that reaction kept me going. And then I think the most memorable episode was about you doing the visual test plans. And the only thing that doesn't, there was I rewatched it. It's a beautiful presentation, but the only thing I remembered from that initially was just the pizza. So in my head was Chelsea talking about pizza. That was my I think the earliest recollection of the podcast for me when it comes to episodes. So somewhere around that time, I started interacting with you guys and then joined the Discord, and since then I'm the part of the community.
It's really a Pavlov's response. You know, who doesn't like pizza? If you watch our show, you're going to hear about it.
All right, well, I cheated because I quickly searched our Introduce Yourself channel in Discord. I joined the Discord on October 1st, 2022.
Dang.
Yeah, for me, it like, I know a lot of people have word of mouth, or they see something or see the podcast. For me, I was just in my own little vacuum of a world, and I'm like, I need to connect with other QA. I need to like find other people and just be like, I'm trying this thing. Am I crazy? Does this make sense to other people? Because there just wasn't a lot of QA over where I was working. And so I actually started by looking around at the IGDA. And so I was like, hey, they got like events, they got like meetups. I should probably get involved with that. I went and checked out their Discord. It was kind of sparse. And then on their Discord was a link to the Underground QA Discord. I was like, my people. So that's how I found it. Is I actually found us through a different Discord. And it was like, yes, okay, this is what I'm looking for. And started chatting with folks.
Love it.
Thanks for giving me the cheat hint and looking in the Introduce Yourself channel, because I did that immediately afterwards. Apparently it was the 2nd of March 2022, so it's been a couple of years. But I remember, like, I don't remember where the podcast came up, if it was LinkedIn or if it was reshared elsewhere in another channel that I was in. But I remember when I first saw an episode, just like binging all of the like podcast episodes that had been like done up until that point. Was very much in kind of like a learning to try and get as much information as possible at the time, and kind of becoming hooked on asking questions and seeing responses in the Discord after that. And I think at the time that was probably only like a couple of hundred members in the Discord, and seeing it explode to the multiple thousand members that are in there now has shown how much the that group has grown in Discord in particular. And it's really cool to see that growth and how much more people are willing to help out now compared to before, just as a natural response of there being more people within that space.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see. So our origin story really starts out in late 2019. Some of us got together and said, hey, did any of your QA talks get selected for GDC? And no shade at GDC, but none of us got picked. Or maybe one of us got picked. And at that point in time, I'd been running GDC roundtables for 3 or 4 years for the QA groups. A lot of us had been really itching to figure out a way to get more education and get QA people together. And GDC felt like a very natural space because so many of us were going to volunteer for our companies. We weren't even necessarily going for the education portion because we weren't going to have time for that necessarily. We were going for helping our companies out or assisting with playtests on the floor or whatever the case was. And so, a small group of us got together and said, how can we make QA information accessible? And Ariel was working at Ector at that point in time, and they very graciously offered to let us host our conference that we ended up coming with there. And within a couple of weeks, we had sponsors, we had rentals for chairs and tables, and we had talks sorted. And it was really ragtag. Like it was going to be a day very early in the week of GDC, I think like Tuesday, maybe Monday or Tuesday, where we were going to get together and have a full day together. We were going to have a catered lunch. It was going to be awesome. And the key premise was to make it accessible. And I think our tickets were $25, if I remember correctly. We had 50 tickets at $25 a piece, and that was going to get us the rest of the money to cater lunch. And we'd sold out within the first, I want to say week or two. I mean, we sold out really quickly. We had started designing a t-shirt. Our old logo was there. And so for those of you who know about our old logo, it was a shield. And we'll make sure to put it up, but it was a shield with a game controller on it. And it was, just a very humble beginning for us. And if you remember, late 2019 and early 20 as we start to get closer to the date. Even as soon as February 5th and like 20th, we were exchanging emails like, hey, planning. And we'd heard about this flu that was happening, east of us and west of us. But then the world shut down. And GDC very last minute canceled. And we decided to cancel right around the same time. And it was heartbreaking. It really was. It was one of those things where I couldn't believe, none of us could believe it was happening anyway. But we felt pretty heartbroken. We refunded everyone's tickets. We got refunds from vendors, thank goodness. Our sponsors were very kind. And we made our first episode called Quality in Quarantine. Because we said, like, hey, we're going to use some of this content that we made and we're going to talk about it. And that was the birth of this place and space. We made a Discord and we made a YouTube channel and a Twitch channel. And our first episode is not great and not bad, but it was it's something to look at and think of like, hey, wow, we did this. So
well, we still bad at playing music at the beginning, so some things never change.
Some things. What's in common, though, is what I want to say, which is me trying to make things happen like that. So we did good. But yeah, it's funny. Lady Odd Duck, Sarah says, like, shout out to when the IGDA QA org was on Slack. Yep, that's where we started, in the IGDA. And because that's where so many of us kind of met previously at roundtables and in that Slack channel. So that's our origin story of how we got here. I'm going to kind of move forward and ahead to favorite episodes and spaces that taught you something about quality in games. And oh wait, hold on. Yeah. No, that's exactly where I want to be. Sorry. So for me, thinking about favorite episodes and spaces, we just did a meetup last week to talk to the community about what was affecting them, where they were seeing changes. And the jobs board has been probably one of the most influential things that I'm seeing in the community in terms of favorite episodes and spaces that have taught people or influenced them for quality in games. What do y'all think in terms of spaces that taught you something?
Well, before you dip away from it, I do want to call up for that job board. That is an amazing resource. I am incredibly thankful that I have not needed a new job in the past few years since I joined the Discord, but knowing that it's there, having been in that job hunt purgatory, and knowing that, like, looking through LinkedIn or finding some Excel thing that people made, but it's 6 months out of date, like the fact that we have a live board just gives me some like safety net. I'm just like, okay, if things really go bad, I know where I can go to kind of kick off that process. So I'm a big believer in even if I'm not actively using it, knowing that it's there and seeing it is just like, okay, there's still that. I have that in the back pocket. Yeah. As far as impactful episodes, most and least memorable, the talking about the ISTQB game tester certification, which we did a whole thing about. We had an episode, but we also had some lead ups, and we had a book club. So as book club, we decided to read a few chapters, get in, and then on a weekend, hop in the call and say, hey, what'd you guys think of this chapter? For me, it was extra impactful as I had just done the core level ISTQB certification the hard way. The hard way, in my opinion, is just reading the syllabus aggressively until you understand everything and then going and taking the test. So I didn't take a class. I didn't have anybody help me. I'm just like, no, I'm just going to learn this. And I did pass. And then I had opinions formed about ISTQB in their core level. And then they came up with the game cert. I'm like, okay, this should be focused. And my first reading of it was, oh God, this is a mess. I don't want this to be the norm. What is going on? Again, that little imposter syndrome moment where I'm like, is this real? Is this how QA works in the rest of the industry? Am I just like really out of place? And then once we had our first book club, I'm like, no, it is wrong. I'm not wrong. It's wrong. It's got some growing pains of being the first attempt at this, and we did pick on it for an episode or two. But yeah, just having that whole process of having a podcast about it, but also just the book club leading up to it, and chatting with folks, and having a Discord channel where we ping topics back and forth and figured out translation errors inside of it. Just really helped. I'll say it again, it's the imposter syndrome. You're never sure when you're working at a company and you only have your QA to judge and assume that's how it's working for everybody else. I really love being able to get other people's insights and opinions and go, oh, okay, good, we're in this together. So that was the most memorable for me, was the game cert episode.
I think for me, in terms of like a specific episode, and that like I think all of the episodes have in some way been helpful to my like lexicon and terminology and how people describe different situations. And a situation comes up and I can point to an example and say, oh, I've heard about this before, or I've heard people talk about this in this lens. But specifically the escapes defect episode, talking about a lot of the kind of metrics that folks use and how to track that, the scenarios that might come up around that. I think one of the topics that came up or questions that came up is frequently as QA we hear developers might say, how did QA not catch that, and how to approach that topic and that question. And that type of discussion I think is invaluable when you get different perspectives and people working in different studios of different sizes on different types of projects, and how you can approach that type of question. So I really value that episode in particular, the escapes defects one, but I think all of them in some way teach me different perspectives and different terminology and lexicon and such.
I've in our episode discussion on Discord, I've pointed out 2 episodes, and I mentioned them because those are the 2 topics I thought I knew a lot about, but then after the episode, it turns out I had a lot of gaps in that. And one of the most recent one was the unions in game dev. I thought, coming from a country that has a history with unions, I thought I know a lot about unions, and then thanks to our wonderful guests, I've learned a lot more. And the same goes for Women in Games. That was season 2, episode 6. I kind of rolled my eyes, wasn't like, oh no, we're gonna get that mandatory episode of reminding people the basic stuff. And then I again learned a lot, and I wasn't expecting to get that different perspective and a lot of insight that otherwise I wouldn't have. And my main was the Chelsea's pizza, but I'm not the only one. Zorzamov, which is a community member that is also in the chat, in the discussion, pointed out to those 2 exact episodes as well. So the test plan part 1 and part 2, which was episode 6 and episode 7, season 1, and part 2, I think, was the pizza. So if you want to see where the pizza comes from, season 1, episode 7, they're gonna have Chelsea explaining visually how to divide a pizza.
Yeah. That episode, I feel like our first season is such a unique season because we talk about career progression, hiring, we give some like specific talks, and then we also have our race and empathy episode for Black Lives Matter, which was happening right at that time. And I think, that episode for me was really impactful and where I learned a lot. And Marcin, you mentioned that, like, I went in surrounded by so much information in the media and, so many things happening in our lives. And we were also under lockdown and all of these things are going on. And it's like, it's intense. And I walked in being a guest on that episode, specifically being worried about where I was and recognizing that I still had so much learning to do. And I've walked out of so many episodes feeling that from a craft and a life perspective. And it's been really incredible. So whether we're highly curating or having a discussion, I always feel like I'm going to walk away with something. I always feel like I'm going to walk away knowing more. And that's a blessing in so many ways.
And it's very humbling, right? Like, after 12 years now in the industry, you would think that there's very little. I mean, you always learn, but at this point, you'll be like, a lot of those episodes, you'll be like, oh, I know this, I don't have to watch it. But then every time, every episode, you learn something new, and it's really humbling that from even the most basic topics, you can get a lot of information or fundamentals that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah. And we've seen people grow on, like Sarah mentions in the chat, impactful onboarding still stands out to her as one of the most impactful episodes. Interestingly, that is one of our most viewed episodes. And Lindsay Peck or Lindsay Thacker, I'm not sure. She was Lindsay Thacker, I think, at that point. But regardless, Lindsay went on to give a talk this year at GDC on an expanded version of what she did for us. And I do think, we haven't just stuck to the easy topics. We haven't just stuck to the craft knowledge and probably what people perceive as the lane that QA people should stay in. And even more basic than that, the lane that testers should stay in. We've really talked about quality as a human across the industry and the world. And it's been a wonderful thing to see. And one thing to note, just to kind of plug, if you have ideas of something that you're passionate about or that you want us to talk about, it may feel a little spicy or it may feel like a really basic thing. Like, let us know. We're developing episodes because of what y'all are asking for. And so many of the things that we've done have been because someone either sitting here right now on screen or in the community has said, like, hey, we want to learn more about this. And you don't have to be an expert to drive the conversation or to take an action. So, just to kind of plug that. Going back to like, hey, not sticking to the kind of easy things. You mentioned unionization. That's something that has not been an easy topic. and layoffs in the industry. How have y'all seen the tone of the conversations in the community change? How have you seen the tone of the industry, and how it has having this group of people affected how you approach that tone or how you approach finding that?
I find sometimes those topics can get pretty spicy pretty quickly in different ways. Different people have different perspectives. Even to touch on the layoff situation, it's spicy in a way that you might not think of people kind of struggling with having experienced it themselves. And they might say, "Hey, I have 3, 4, 5+ years of experience, but I'm really struggling to follow up and to find another role that's suitable for me." Even some people will say, like, "I'm not sure if games is the right industry for me to continue in," and that can be like really heartbreaking when you see other people struggle. So there's I think a really good support network in the Discord, at least for people who do experience that. And I think it's also a really good reminder that like your career and your job and maybe your role in QA shouldn't be part of your identity necessarily. You are a unique person, unique personality who brings your own take to what QA is, and it shouldn't be the other way around. It shouldn't be that like QA is part of you. It's that you bring things to QA and the studio and the discipline that you're part of. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily work out, especially with the way that the games industry is at the moment. It's been a challenging few years with a lot of layoffs. And I think some people have had to look elsewhere for roles. But I think that their skills that they built up as part of QA and their experience so far has been very helpful to them. And we've had people say that when they come into Discord in other places. And it's great to see folks who haven't managed to find roles still super engaged in the Discord too. But yeah, I think it's challenging sometimes with topics like that.
Yeah, I'm very thankful of.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Marcin.
I wanted to say I specifically looked because I wanted to say that one important conversation that switched is the discussion around crunch. I think around 2020 or after 2021, I think the COVID was one of the things that changed that. When you're sitting at home, you get a different perspective. But before 2020, it was like kind of normalized, right? Like it's game dev, you crunched, right? Obviously, there were discussions about it being bad and all that stuff, right? But it wasn't as for the companies to admit it. Like if somebody said the company is facing grueling crunch, it was like, yeah, happens. But then after 2020, I don't remember which year, but I think also 2022, I think, or 2021, like whenever news broke about somebody or company getting into crunch, it shifted like drastically to being like, this is like you're super bad for doing it. Like it was in all the news, the perspective shifted to people going against that. There was nobody saying, oh, like there were still some voices, and there still obviously are still voices when they say, we know it's game dev, it's crunch, but since for the past 5 years or 6 years, it shifted towards like if you do crunch, it's really bad. If you have QA, it doesn't matter if it's QA or whatever is a department, it's super bad. And companies are shown to the point where they will even lie that there is no crunch, and then there will be a report news that they lied and indeed there was crunch. It got to the point where saying that there's no crunch is the way to go. And now if a company does things without crunch, now it's being praised, which is really good. Still sad that you have to praise companies for not having crunch, but even if you see right now, there's not so many news breaking about crunch. So I think it got to the point that we wanted to be kind of industry where obviously now it's shifted to unions, right? But the conversation about crunch is not as important right now because I think most of the companies are good more or less with crunch. Like it's not as relevant as it was before. So now we went to a more important topic right now, which is the financial aspect, the job safety of the job. So I think we're moving up the chain of basic needs. So we no longer torture developers with 16 hours of work. So now we're thinking about more other important stuff that we couldn't before go into, which is job stability, financial stability, and how much you get paid and all that stuff, right? So I think that's really great to see over the years happening.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even though I know there are still people out there crunching to an unreasonable degree, I'm glad to see that the shift has happened. The norm of what is acceptable has gone in the correct direction, in my opinion. And promoting that, there's two channels. Used to be just one, and it got split at some point. Is we have the Spicy QA Conversations, which is a channel more open for topics to again get a little spicy. And I'm very thankful that there are people in there that are very open about their opinions, and there's a place to share that safely. And then kind of a spin-off of that channel is we added the industry news. Is that, you know, news in our industry was coming up so much that somebody had the idea, hey, what if we just made a thread Discord channel, which I don't think existed when we kicked off this community, of just posting news. And as odd as it is to say, that's actually become my main news source. I don't watch the news enough. I don't, go out of my way, but that channel is something that I kind of peek at and I go, oh, that's what's going on. And so the existence of that, and a shout out to Alejandro, who's one of our main contributors, that anytime something breaks, he's got a post in there already explaining what's going on. I really appreciate that channel existing, and I think that's been my way to view how things are shifting in the industry, is to see what those news articles are. Again, it's very easy for me to get very siloed into just my company, or maybe a couple of sister companies. As my company's owned by Xbox, I might get to interact with one or two other companies from time to time, but really being in this Discord and seeing people post about, hey, here's what's going on over here, or here's what's going on in my country or my part of the world, that I'm usually blind to, and this has become kind of my sole way of connecting with the rest of the world from the QA standpoint.
Yeah, I think, what we've seen over the years is more channels with more in-depth knowledge. We started out pretty light, and now we've got channels for everything. We have regional channels now. We have events channels because people are going and meeting up. In fact, I loved that we had people meet at GDC and post a picture together. Like, that made me super happy to see that folks in our community are meeting up, and that it's natural now to have these conversations. And Zorzamoth Raphael in the channel said, like, I love the spicy channel. Not everyone would be brave enough to open up that channel and let everyone throw their 2 cents into the ring. And I think it's true. Like, we have had to worry about that a little bit as custodians of that, but I think generally the community has been good about setting up, hey, this is a safe space and it's good to disagree, but we're all on the same side. And, disagreement doesn't mean that you're against someone. And in this world right now, I think it's so important that we can safely disagree and we can safely express our thoughts. And it's okay if not everybody agrees with you. That's not the way the world is supposed to work. In fact, as QA people, we deal with disagreement all the time. It is a natural tension, and it's not always, we are also not always right. The pursuit of quality endlessly isn't always the right answer, because there are many things that go into what's good enough. But I think as a community, we're always pushing for how can we be better, and what is a standard of expectation for good. And I love that about this group. You can see it in our Black Lives Matter, women in games and unionization conversations when we talk about that. But David, you and I had a conversation, and you mentioned it earlier too, that the ISTQB and game certification kind of, was it weekly meetup?
It was I think it was a monthly meetup. And what we did is for context, there's a whole episode on this. ISTQB is the International Software Testing's Qualification Board. And although it was developed for IT positions and software testing, it is the closest thing we've got to video game QA standards. And so even though, and you can check out those episodes, we might disagree with some of their standards. If you go look at job postings, that is the thing that people are posting. Some of these big companies like Blizzard always post, do you have ISTQB certification for their mid, senior, or leadership roles in QA? That's all we got. And even ISTQB admitted that, hey, the core certification doesn't make a ton of sense in game QA for certain aspects of it. So they attempted to make a game a game cert, once focused on just how would QA work in video games, and they did touch on more things that are applicable, but they also touched on some things that were very strange. And so the way we approached that is we set up I want to say it was monthly, it may have been every 2 weeks. It all blurs. But we had a recurring system where we looked at certain chapters. So I think there were like 8 chapters or something. So we split a pay. We're going to talk about chapters 1 and 2 this week, and then come back to 3 and 4. Again, split things up, make things work for people's timelines. And we would just focus on those chapters and talk about what we agreed or disagreed with. And then again, we brought all of that back to a podcast, so people who enjoy the podcast aspect of our community could enjoy it that way. Others could join the Discord there, and I believe we even published some of our notes into those channels that so people can come back and see, hey, what were the kind of group thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, it's spicy because there's been
we disagree.
yeah, exactly. And some of us are more outspoken about it than others. I'll say I'm probably on the more strong, outspoken side of things. But that's not for a lack of wanting there to be a standard, right? Like, I really have wanted that forever. And I'm excited that there's more news to come on that very soon, on something that several of us in the community have been working on. But I think we're really at the cusp of having a space where, we have started a standardizing body without realizing it here in this community.
Wanted to say, speaking of how awesome our community is, don't we have like Rex Black in the yeah, we have Rex Black in the community. Did we have
Rex was
during
in the ISTQB group, I think, actually.
Yeah.
Rex and Chris Howell. Sorry, my camera keeps going out of focus. Chris Howell, who both authors in textbooks.
This is the best thing about this community, right? Like having, like, when I heard Rex being there, I kind of wanted to, fangirl out on both of them. Like, this is, you don't think about even like, because I've learned from all Rex's Black's book about testing. So having him there and being able to talk to him, that's really cool and awesome.
Yeah,
and just to highlight it for anybody listening or watching who may not know, that those folks are involved with some of the creation of those ISTQBs. They were consulted or contributing to it. So from my perspective, it was great to be, I'm not just shouting into the void about the things that I disagree with on the cert. It's like that feedback is actually going somewhere that can be heard and interpreted and be like, hey, this group of QA professionals of different aspects agree with these parts and disagree with others. And that feedback is actually getting back to that group. So again, just another aspect of our community is that it's a very diverse group. It goes up and down the scale. We've got VPs, we've got people trying to get into QA, and then we've just got connections to all sorts of different parts of our industry. So it makes all of my efforts around this community feel more impactful to know that there is a certain amount of reach that we've acquired at this point.
And I think it's still spicy, right? Like, asking the question, do you need certification or you don't need certification, is always a banger spicy topic to have people divide into 2 camps and talk about, should you have a certification or not have certification, what's the point, it's just a scam and all that stuff. And it's always, I think it's going to be always a very correct topic, do you need a cert or not?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic for all of us to consider. And I encourage us to move into the spicy channel to have the conversation further, because there's so much context there that we can talk about.
A quick shout out to Chris Howell as well. I heard the name mentioned, and that, like, one of the first things whenever someone who might be new to games QA in particular, they ask what's like resources would I like recommend, and I'm a bit biased, but I recommend podcasts and Discord as like one place for people to start. I recommend a modern game testing book from Chris Howell. And then if anyone ever brings up game testing, I'm Irish, so it's frequently followed by explicitives afterwards. So
I love that. Yeah, I think we're really lucky to have some really incredible folks, and to recognize that each of you is also, being everyone who's listening to this, everyone who puts info into the community, you're all influencing the way that the profession itself is growing. And things that you say in this group get taken into account in much larger rooms in much bigger organizations. And if you think people aren't listening, they are. They're clearly listening. And keep talking, keep putting your input out there, keep bringing up the spicy things, because it allows people who may not have the context in their own tiny spaces to have the context and to know. Maybe they didn't know and they felt very alone, or maybe they knew and they just didn't have anyone to reach out to, or maybe they had no perspective at all and they've been privileged by not having to handle those things. Just recognize that and give people grace on that side as well, right? Like, doesn't mean we forgive bad actions, but it also means it's an opportunity for each of us to give our context and to help teach around us. And that means our development partners and our families and all of the people who are around us too. Anything else to add for kind of the spicy area, or anything you want to tag around right there? No,
I think
there's more spice to come.
That's
our
definitely
list of spicy topics, and I'm like, oh man, I wouldn't have predicted any of these before they went off. Well, maybe a couple, but yeah, I think our latest spicy topics are probably unionization, and ISTQB is still pretty fresh. But I know I'm oddly excited to see what the next one is, and the people are going to bring it up. There's always going to be something, and it's nice to know there's a spot to talk about it.
Just wanted to hammer down a point of what Jesse said before of how civil and cultural discussion is there, and how despite being so many, I would say, high-level profile people, it's still super cool to see people still engage those spicy topics. I love how the space is the community and the channels is such a safe space for people that doesn't matter what's the topic, we can discuss that and also be civil about it.
Yeah.
QA in the meme, when QA discuss about spicy topics, it's very cultural, and then get into some silly topic, and then we go all the rage.
The memes channel is a great place to blow off some of that steam as well.
Mm-hmm.
We had some spicy memes, so that sometimes it gets interchanged.
Thank you to Joe and Marcin who championed that channel so much. I'm going to spring something on y'all a little bit before we move to our next topic, which is if you could give advice to someone who's new to the community, thinking about joining it, maybe nervous to post or talk, and maybe they're not interested in the spicy aspects of things, how can they get involved? How can they make their mark, or how can they, find their place in UGQA?
Like there's a few channels in there that are fortunately kind of avoiding the spicy topics, and you could start with those channels that are kind of friendlier at surface level, and then just like dipping toes in a little bit by bit, like watching the podcasts and talking about like maybe some of your thoughts that have been provoked as a result of some of the things that people have said during those podcasts. And I mentioned it earlier, but the monthly beverage hour is a great way to like actually talk to people who are also part of the community over voice. So just dipping your toes into different bits there, I think, could be a good place to start.
And the library channel, that's definitely where you can put stuff out and leave your mark. There's a lot of I'm so thankful to that channel. Like I will periodically go into that, be scared how much there's good content that I have to catch on, but definitely that and Tester Help Center. Like doesn't matter if you're new to the industry or new to the community. I think everybody will always appreciate your 2 cents on the topic that people ask questions or have problems with.
I'd want to let everybody know lurking is totally okay. Like, yes. I mean, that I was looking at, I joined in 2022. I think I probably lurked for a good year before I got overly active. Lurking is okay. You can just chill. You can read channels, toss in an emoji every once in a while for something you agree or disagree or saddens you. Like it is totally fine. Even for like our coffee talks and whenever we're doing these book clubs, we have many people who join in completely on mute, no webcams, no microphones, just using chat to interact with us, and that's a-okay. So if that is an easier way for you to interact, either short-term or long-term, if that's your preferred method of interacting with others, we are totally fine with that. So yeah, lurking is fine. Text communication is fine. Whatever kind of works for you, we're very open to, and we have a lot of people that engage in very different ways. Some of them, less, they don't want to turn a webcam on and join a podcast. That's fine. You don't need to do that. If the thing for you is being able to give a thumbs up emoji to something you agree with in a spicy topic, awesome.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the only thing I would add there is it's cool for you to get on and play games and ask people to join you as well, to keep it light and positive in the chit chat channel if that's what you need, or post your pets in the pets channel, or to ask people to post pets or memes or any of those things, like, hey, I just need that. In fact, I do that with water quite frequently. Water sends me reminders to drink water because I'm terrible at it, and so they just started sending them to me as a daily reminder to drink water. And sometimes those things, those little needs of like, hey, I need to remember to drink water, can someone here help hold me accountable to that? It's a beautiful thing to be able to do that. So we're going to move towards a kind of different phase, which is to say, where do we see ourselves in 5 years? And on the community side, when we ask this question, folks want more game jam playtests or bug jams. And what a unique idea. We did create a game jam playtest channel, and it's had some action. In fact, I think a member brought up recently, hey, is there anybody doing anything here? And, we're relying on folks to tell us if there's a good playtest happening or if there's a game jam. And things like Global Game Jam are totally opportunities for us to participate and to figure out. And we kind of are sitting here thinking, like, could we do a bug jam? Could we ask for someone to give us their game so we can jam out on it and find bugs for someone who needs them found? And I think that's a friggin' fantastic idea. I love that idea. What do y'all think? Anything there on the game jam playtest bug jam idea?
I love it, as that's usually the thing we're pointing people to when they're asking, what can I put on my resume? It's like, well, can you get involved in a beta or an alpha or a playtest of some sort? And then they're like, oh, that sounds great. And then we all kind of twiddle our thumbs going like, okay, how do I do that though? So I think that would be an amazing way to get involved. Again, game jams are a great way, cross-discipline. Playtest is usually something we're looking for in the hiring manager side for QA, because I do a lot of hiring for junior level. And it's like, hey, how do you show you're really interested in QA and have a knack for it and an interest in it without any previous job experience? It's like, these are the only things. So I love the idea of exposing that. I love the idea of taking some game that somebody's actually invested in, more than an hour's worth of a game jam or an afternoon. They're actually like, early on, like, hey, I'm actually gonna like double down on this thing, and being just like, hey, can we do a bug jam for you, help you get some quantitative feedback, qualitative feedback. I think that would be awesome for individuals, indie developers that are working on this stuff, and great for anybody who wants to get that first notch in their belt to put on their resume that they're trying to get these jobs. Give yourself a leg up on other candidates and show that, hey, I'm actually interested in this. I want to show that I know how to write a good bug report. I know the aspects of it. I know how to write a test plan and how to execute it and what it means to dig into things and know how to measure my time and around some sort of bug jam. I think it's a great idea, and I'd love to test it out, try it out, see if that's something we can grow. And for me, it just sounds fun. It sounds fun to just like leave my game that I've been working on the same game for the last 5 years. It finally released this year.
Congrats.
Thank you.
What game is this, David?
This is Avowed by Obsidian Entertainment. The first-person and third-person action RPG in the Pillars of Eternity universe. And yeah, I got hired for that job during the pandemic, so I've been working for the same game for 5 years, and it's not like a live service game where I get to interact with players. So that all said, the idea of being able to just like put my big honking game down with giant bug database and be like, let's do a bug jam for a weekend. That sounds exciting. It sounds like a fun thing to just kind of like, I as a lead, I don't get to just get dirty and writing bugs as much as I'd like, and be able to say, let's just spend an afternoon and go break a game. It's like, that sounds like a spa day to me. So if others are also equally interested in something like that, I'd love to test it out, try it out, and again, give people a leg up on their resumes. I think that'd be as a hiring manager, that would be a fantastic thing for me to see and then ask about in the interview. Is for them to be like, no, I'm really into the QA side of game dev. I did a bug jam where we grabbed an indie game and we beat on it for an afternoon and wrote up this many bugs, and this is how I wrote them and why I wrote them this way.
David, you're getting some love in the chat from Pristine Gamer on Avowed. So grats on that. Chocobo, I see you just asked, wait, did I understand correctly that there are game jams about video game QA? I'm very novice and I've done some paid playtests, but I've never heard of that. That's because we're trying to figure out the bug jam aspect of things. That's kind of a new popped up in our brains during discussion. But yes, game jams use QA people. And so there is, I think it's like gamejams.net. If you search on Google or whatever your preferred search engine is, there is a webpage that shows a calendar of game jams that are happening. You can join them and find groups, and you can always volunteer your time. The benefit of getting into a game jam, hold on, let me put on my teacher hat here. The benefit of getting into a game jam is that you get the opportunity to play multiple roles. And let's say you have a passion in asset creation, or you're learning blueprints in UE, or even, hey, I'm trying to make some UEFN levels, or I'm a novice in Godot even. Like, those are amazing opportunities for you to stretch your skills and to get into an engine and to create something. And that will be helpful for you as an embedded QA person later, because generally as an embedded QA person, you will be an engine with your team in some way, shape, or form until later in your career. And so getting into engine and participating in a game jam as a helper to someone in something you're interested in, audio, visuals, tech art, animation, engineering, all kinds of things, right? Design, do it.
And you get kind of this experience of making a game speedrun in the game jam, like it's 48 hours, 22 hours.
With a theme usually, and possibly like an engine.
Yeah, but I'm putting here a notion on the aspect where you look at those, even Avowed or whatever big game, they're so big and multi-layered, you don't see the basics of it, you know, the core loops, everything that makes that game a fun game. And usually the biggest problem for aspiring game developers, doesn't matter if you want to be QA or game designer or programmer or whatever it is answering the question, what makes the game fun?
Yes.
And even I've watched today a documentary on how Tetris was made. The guy that was Hank, which was the guy that made struck the deal with between the Russian state and the Nintendo. He said something struck a chord. Like, he couldn't even in that interview say about the core loop being fun. Is something struck a chord within me, right? So having the ability to see those games getting built from start to finish will get you the bigger and better understanding of what makes games fun, what makes that core loop addictive. And that's one of the most important skill sets you can ever get, because no matter how skilled you are in an engine or how skilled of a QA you are, if you play a game and you cannot tell why this game is fun or why this makes sense, you'll have a hard time providing a valuable feedback to anyone. Besides QA, like any role in game development, right? So don't undervalue the game jams. Like, witnessing and experiencing that speedrun of making a game will give you a lot of insights of what makes games fun.
Yes. Yep. One other thing the community mentioned for where do we see ourselves in 5 years was the conversation around AI. Everyone laughs. Yeah.
Do we have another hour and a half?
Yeah. We should do an episode if we can.
A question about, like, I wonder what the next spicy topic is, and I feel like I might just hit it.
Yeah, that's
I'm not going to engage on this one, and I'm going to say get into your local UGQA channel and talk to us about what you want to know about AI, what your feelings are, And what I'll say is remember that there are multiple sides to the conversation. Make sure to ask questions. There are a lot of assumptions with AI that are happening and that you're being told on all the sides. And so just remember that when you're going into this conversation, remember to ask lots of questions around what the person is trying to achieve or what you're trying to achieve and what's available.
Yeah, I like that. It's very diverse too. I just came back from GDC. That was the flavor of the year. You know, previously it was blockchains and NFTs. This year GDC was all about AI. There was a lot of AI talks, and I just want to call out that there's different types and use cases for AI. So you know, don't view it as just like one topic. It is actually a umbrella of a bunch of subtopics of how do we use AI generation, how do we use AI for testing, how do we do, you know, pattern recognition, or how do we use AIs against the code. There's just a bunch of different flavors and types of AI. So keep that in mind as you're engaging in these discussions. Try to be specific about what use case you're trying and why and how, because you know there's the opinion you might have of one aspect of AI may be different if you see other aspects of AI. So just bear that in mind. Everybody's talking about different things. Try to be specific about what you're talking about in relation to it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the situation where we had the advent of having software not being a domain of sciencey engineers people, when you had to have an engineer that did the math to do a 3D effect in movies. You had an actual mathematician engineer to do the thing because there was no normal like user-friendly software to do that. And then when that software happens, everybody was like, well, now the market is ruined. Like everybody will be a 3D modeler, everybody will be a graphic designer, and the industry is ruined. Like everybody will make a logo, and here we are. Not everyone can make a logo. Not everyone can edit videos. Not everyone can do 3D. Not everyone can do web design. I remember the things with what you see, what you get.
Yeah.
And still here we are because you cannot just you cannot get a hammer and then actually be able to architect a whole building. Like, so the same with AI. Like, be vigilant and be cautious. Tools are awesome. Use the tools, but just because you got a hammer doesn't mean now you can go and build a skyscraper.
That might be the only thing that I add on the AI topic as well, is that like all the time this is a discipline that is evolving, and I think you could look back 20 years and see how like QA has evolved within games during that time. It's going to continue to evolve, but the discipline isn't going anywhere, and AI is not going to get rid of the discipline by any means. So I don't think anyone should be worried about that.
Yeah.
Yep. I also think like people get generative AI and AI as being the exact same thing, and they're not. In fact, I think I gave a talk a long time ago in this group of like, we've had AI in the industry. It's what your NPCs quite frankly often do. It's gotten more complex and more complicated, but just again, be cautious, be inquisitive. It's evolving. There are many things, and you know, you heard it here. Even all of us have different perspectives on what to look for when you're having that conversation. Okay, what else do we see in 5 years from the community? Specific tools to aid people in getting better in the community. And the top one we've got listed is portfolios, and we hear you and we see you in the channels. We will make a good portfolios episode soon. TM, I'm hopeful for. So a portfolio is something you use to show your work or to show your talent. And for artists and engineers, generally, it is much easier because they can get permission to show off what they're doing from their studios as a part of their kind of job. For us, it's a little bit harder. So we want to generate some tooling around how to show off what you're doing. And I'm excited about that. What do y'all think?
You can get creative here. There's no standards. Like, and I think you're gonna score a lot of points with interviewers, because it's rarely seen for QA to have any sort of portfolio. So it shows your dedication, shows your passion, and also doing something that rarely anyone does. So you're basically creating the standards by doing portfolio for yourself. Because there aren't like any. How many times did you get a QA person with a link to a QA portfolio, because I never had that.
Maybe once or twice in my career, and that's probably 30,000 plus resumes that I've reviewed.
I've only seen it once also.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a real QA portfolio. I have interviewed students who had portfolios because they were looking at multiple jobs. And I, of course, clicked that link, checked out the portfolio, found their presentation. I actually hired a QA who, this was funny because she didn't realize that I went and clicked on her portfolio. She gave a student presentation of a game jam project they did for the semester while wearing a squirrel onesie. That was her big thing. She did the whole presentation with a whiteboard, jumping around in a squirrel onesie. And I'm like, that I want to see that. I want to see your energy and your around it. And again, a lot of aspects of that website she prepared and the videos, both the game and the presentation, did give me QA insights to this person, and we did end up hiring that person. So like, it's got the beginnings of a QA portfolio, but it wasn't really geared to be for a QA position, and I'd love to see that.
Well, David, I want to kind of poke you, since you were just talking. What do you see for our future in the next 5 years in the community?
So I'm going to go at this in two ways, because for me, there's been a big shift, and spoilers for what I'll be plugging later is I just gave a GDC talk about some of the aspects of what we've been doing for internal QA. And so for me, one of the big things that I view for internal QA is that we need to be leveling up our ability to analyze the game. And by that, I mean using the tools that designers, artists, programmers are using to interact with the game, and not purely black box testing, not just grabbing a fully baked build with no insights to how it's made and just trying to test it. That worked 30 years ago. And if I was going to just be testing Tetris, I could get away with just that test methodology. But as our games grow more complex, more in depth, we add more things. Other disciplines are specializing. You know, when I started, we just had artists. We have character artists, environment artists, but even like my environment art is now split between, I have world builders, environment artists, asset builders, lighting artists, and tech artists, all taking on, you know, different aspects of world creation. As we get more complex, as those disciplines are splintering into subsections, I think QA needs to as well. So I fully believe that our QA, especially if you're an internal embedded QA, you need to get your hands on these tools. You need to understand how to use these engines, how these folks are interacting with tools, and be testing the tools themselves as much or more than the end product of the game. Because as we get more diverse, as like COVID hit the world and we forced ourselves to find how to work remote, we are working remote. We are working with codev. We are working with external, and I see that spiking. So I view that for our community, there's a few ways we can be helping each other. One is engaging with those different groups, understanding the differences between codev, external, and internal, which we had a podcast that touched on that recently. But also for me as an internal QA advocate, we need to up our game. We need to understand these tools because if we don't provide a value that can only be done by internal QA, we won't exist. If our jobs can be done by external QA, it's cheaper to do it externally. And so I believe that's a good forcing function. We need to level up what our discipline does for internal, how we communicate with other disciplines, and the tools that we understand and use on a daily basis. So how I see that affecting our underground QA community is I really want to get active with other internal QA and talk about what are these tools. Nobody's going to teach it to us. I shouldn't say no. There are advocates out there that are supporting us, and I have a lot that I work with. But in general, there's not a lot to give you that kind of entry-level understanding from a QA perspective. I really want to see us engage with each other about how do I use the Unreal and Unity engines, or whatever the Godot, or whatever these kind of general ones are that are free and out there. How do I engage with those? How do I actually build an asset? How do I actually design a level and understand these adjacent disciplines that we interact with every day? Because all these disciplines are commonly trying to take their tower, their stack of cards, and just get it to work. They just want the code to compile. They just want the asset to import properly. They just want to see it render correctly. They go, ha, it's finally done. As QA, we immediately take a hammer to it and go, and here's how it breaks. And that's our goal, is we approach problems with how do I get it to not work correctly? How do I preserve what you want by seeing it from all the different angles and breaking it down? And we'll do that better if we have the same viewpoint as them. We understand their tools, we'll communicate better with them. So for me, I think that's one of my big focuses is I want to see how do we, as a community, spread that knowledge around to other QA and really level ourselves up. And I don't think it's limited to internal QA. I think, again, external QA who may not have access to the exact tools will become better testers if they can see how it's built. So even if you have kind of read-only access or loose knowledge from our community, you become a better tester by understanding the behind the scenes. So if you have access to behind the scenes, I want you to start using it. I want you to work with each other to learn it. And even if you don't have access, I want you to have at least that read-only view, see how we can share things with you, show you this is how the sauce is made, because you will test better. You will test the things that matter more. So as a group, we need to just understand these things. And I feel that we have a lot to do there. There's a lot of growth we need to do as a discipline. And I feel that we have to. It's one of those evolve or die situations. AI is trying to eat at us from the minor side of, hey, I can do this for you. But even outside of QA, I see other disciplines like our tech artists. I have some senior artists who are spending their time just reviewing other people's work, verifying if it's done right. I'm like, dude, that's QA. That's what we should be doing. So I really feel that if we don't step up, those roles will both be outsourced or sent to other disciplines.
There's something about tech artists, because I also had that experience where the first department to start contributing to the code log and verifying change lists was tech artists, because they've noticed, why should I just wait until a QA comes along and verifies it? What if I learn how they do that and do it for my own, and then just show to the QA trace of proof of how I verified? And then we had this collab where the tech lead came to me as like, could you pass the code, because I verified it. And I instantly knew that I can just blindly put a pass for the code, because I knew he was dedicated to make sure that the feature that he put in, or the changes he put in, is fully tested by him, so I don't need to do a thing, which made everything better and easier.
Thank you. And that's where I've gotten a lot of my traction internally as well, is like we find these tech artists that are basically doing QA work, and I'm like, hey, what if you trained us to do that? They're like, oh, yeah, I have QA. They have access to these tools. That would be great. And it's been a very synergistic relationship of finding out how they're working on things, and then we gain a tool. That's my other fun thing with QA is if you give QA a tool, they're going to go use it for some other use case. I've had so many tools that like, hey, we stood up this awesome tool. It's going to really help designers. I'm like, I don't know if they're going to use that tool. Please finish it. Give me access, because QA is going to use the heck out of it. And so again, as we learn more of these tools behind the scenes and different ways to do things, we become more efficient. We become better collaborators. And more often than not, I find these disciplines are happy to engage with us. So if I can do that more in my day-to-day, but if I can encourage others and give others that same experience throughout the community, that's going to be awesome. So that's one of my personal goals for the next 5 years. Is I'm hoping 5 years from now we're going to be like, yep, we've got analysts, they do these things. We have more QA engineers and SDETs. They're embedded in these things. We've taken over aspects of other roles. We're part of the validation, and the idea of white box, gray box, and black box are just well-known concepts spread throughout the industry.
Yep. Nintendo friends, if you can verify this for me, but I'd heard that the Ascension tool on your gauntlet in Tears of the Kingdom was it originally a QA tool that ended up becoming a more full-fledged feature. So if we have any Nintendo friends who worked on Zelda, let us know if that's true or not, because that's an excellent example of tools becoming something greater. Water, what about you? What do you see in the next 5 years?
She's very much in the same boat as like David in terms of like game development as a craft is a huge field that like no one person is ever going to understand, like all of the intricacies that go into the quality aspects of art and of engineering and of design. And different disciplines look at quality in different ways. Like artists frequently will look at asset quality in one way, whereas engineers might look separately at like the code side of things and functionality and all the aspects around that. And having more avenues to learn and digest the aspects that are relevant from these disciplines for us in QA as we start building those resources and continuing to collaborate across disciplines. I see that as being a potentially like endless learning path and things that we can continue forward on. But I think in many ways that is an expansion on David's point of that like we can help other disciplines in different ways, and there's a mutual relationship between us and others.
Love that. Marcin, what about you?
I will just strengthen the message, but from the angle of your theoretical knowledge of science behind QA. My favorite anecdotal argument for you not only getting to know the tools or how to test games, and even with David saying, go white box and go into nitty-gritty how does design and stuff, that won't still save you, because if you do the basic maths, I think recently Ubisoft said that Assassin's Creed Shadows hit the 3 million mark of players. The tutorial level, I think the prologue is around 2 hours. That's a lot of hours. And if you do the napkin math, even if you have, let's say, 2,000 QA, in order to cover the same amount of playtime that the players did on various systems and hardware and everything, it still nets you around 5,000 days. So that would be a very long pass. Because 5,000 days, I think it's like, I don't know, what? A lot of years, probably more than a decade, right? So unless you're great at math and great at statistics and great at science on how to min-max your tests, you always will end up in a situation when players will find bugs, because it's physically impossible to cover with all the tests the amount of time players spend. So learn the craft not only from practical tool, because that's very important, but also from theoretical part, because you always will end up in a situation where somebody will come at you and be like, why did not QA find it? And sometimes it's true that it was not fixed, but sometimes it's just a matter of fact that with the amount of hardware, and if you do the math, it's just physically impossible to find those bugs. And it's important for you to be able to understand that and then convey it to your peer developers, that sometimes it's just impossible to find that one bug. And how I tie it back to the community is you being in those channels, having the discussions with each other, and sharing, especially in the library, but with each other, all that knowledge on those perspectives, because it's very important. And I think how I see this community in 5 years is continuing to be that safe haven for us, where doesn't matter if you're a director, junior, middle, embedded QA, outsourced QA, whoever you are. If you have a bad day or a good day, you can always come to that community and find solace and support, or brag about your achievements. And I'm hoping that in that 5 years, we'll still have that community where we can just feel like we are a big one family together, and we can share our stories and experiences. And then the only thing, so already we have that. The only thing I want, which already community wants, which is just more community activities like workshops, meetups, book clubs, game jams, whatever it is. That's what I want for our community, and I want to see that in the next 5 years. And on that topic, because I just remembered that we did launch the volunteer channel for people, because Chelsea said at the beginning, when she was doing the elder story of being the matrona of the community, how it started years ago. It's all done for free by people that do that stuff in free time. And there's a lot of work, especially if the community wants a lot of more events and a lot of more stuff. We specifically started having less episodes since last year, just to ease off the pressure from us. But with 2,000 people in the community and increasing, we need more people to help out. We already got 2 additional volunteers, which I think with the amount of this we have, Water, our lovely Water, is part of that group. So we're organizing ourselves better. So if you go to that channel, there's information how you can help. There's a form which you can fill out. All levels of activity are welcome. So it doesn't matter if you just want to chime in once an hour a week, once hour a month. Doesn't matter if you can help out in any of the topics specified there. By all means, we will always welcome you to help out. And thanks to those volunteers, we'll be able to do a lot of great stuff. So please hop into that channel, fill out the form, or even as David said, lurk and see what the volunteers do, and maybe you get inspired to help out the community.
Yes.
I want to double down and just encourage folks drop in and out too. Like my involvement with this community has been like a roller coaster. That I got super involved. We're doing a bunch of stuff. We're things getting ready. Oh gosh, my game is coming out. Oh no, I'm having a baby. Like for a few months there, I'm like, I'm over inside. So it's totally fine. Like the community's been very all parts of the community have been very engaging. Of like, hey, when you're here, and if you gotta jump out, that's fine. So. If you have time now that you want to involve yourself, fantastic. If you just want to lurk for a while and you have a spike comes later, that's all great. So don't feel like you need to make a commitment that's going to be I will be here for 17 hours every 3 weeks. It's like no, like be involved how that works for you. And if you need to step out, let us know. I've received nothing but supportive messages whenever I've had to say like, hey, I'm gonna go have a baby. Sorry. We are all humans having human involvements, and some things are in our control, and some things like layoffs are not in our control. So when you have the time and you want to commit, awesome. And if you got to drop out for a bit, that's cool too.
One last thing I'll say is go take a gander at our merch. Yeah. It's completely charity oriented. We don't get a single dime or dollar out of it. It all goes to Girls Who Code and the Trevor Project. And again, this is a fully free community, but if you want to give by showing your pride in UGQA, we have stickers, we have mugs, we have t-shirts, we have sweatshirts, and posters. And a huge thanks to Brutal Bohemian Zach Bender, our artist, for designing our lovely second generation logo and splash. We're very thankful to anyone who supports us. And that means if you've got artistic talent or you want to do anything for us, you want to create some merch, or you're interested in creating a sticker, we'll also absolutely take your artistic talent and help you get stuff out into the world. So thanks to everyone who has volunteered over the years to give us every bit of help, from helping moderate channels to helping us get our thoughts down on paper and show up and do this. So every one of you is a volunteer by being a part of the community, but thanks to everyone who's given a little bit extra, and we look forward to seeing new folks. We've reached the part of the show where I get you all to tell me what you're up to or plug something interesting that you have seen. And I am going to start with Sarah, who is Lady Odd Duck and our chief moderator, social coordinator, and an amazing human all around. She says, I'm going to beat the Discord drum again. Please come and join us in Discord. The more active participation we have, the stronger and more useful this community will be for all Game QA professionals. We have so much to learn from each other, and in my opinion, that all starts with our Discord, and I could not agree more. Who would like to go next?
Okay. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is that, hey, I actually had a GDC talk accepted, which feels very like full circle from from where we started this community. So I gave a great QA talk. Well, I think it's a great QA talk. People enjoyed it. It's about talking how we moved from testing to analyzing over the past almost 10 years, I think it took to make this this presentation. So with all that in mind, I'm going to give a rerun of that, as I've been updating my slide deck a little bit to be able to use this podcast to give another version of that talk. So stay tuned to this podcast, and we will be doing an episode where I give basically all the same juicy info I gave to our GDC audiences out to our underground QA audience, talking about how we went from testing on Tyranny, one of the first games I worked at Obsidian Entertainment, how things shifted over time, that we somehow got access to some tools, and then how QA started leveraging that access, and it became a feedback loop, and how we basically started things very differently on Avowed, and then through 5 years of iteration, more things we did on Avowed. So bit of story time, bit of practical examples, some behind the scenes that have been approved by my employer to show. So I will be plugging that at some point on this podcast. I will be giving that talk, probably as our next episode.
We can't wait. We're very excited.
I'm a boring person, so I never have anything to plug. But luckily, I have great friends around me. So my dear friend created, I think last year or 2 years ago. I cannot say a great friend and then don't remember when he created his own game company, but Triple I Games, and he's a bowler and a madman because he's not releasing. So it's his first indie game studio that he created, and he's not releasing one, not two, but 3 games at once. So those are 3 Cyberpunk games that will be released next week. You can already go to Steam and wishlist them. All are done in Cyberpunk world. One is a null state, is a CRPG with fresh take on retro hacking games. And the other one is Another Round, is a deck building sharing game about managing a coffee house. And then the last one is One Last Job, is a team management game where you work to build your reputation as a fixer by successfully completing jobs with your crew. I don't know how that studio managed to do 3 games at once, but they did. They are awesome. I play them. They're crazy good, so please check them out and buy them.
Are they
Or don't.
out now?
There are
or
demos. There are
coming
free
soon?
demos. So there are demos of them already, so you can play a demo of them, and then next week they will have a full release where you can buy the game. But the demos are free, so you can go and check out the demos. They're really cool.
Very cool.
I'll look for the links inside of our Discord server as well.
Oh, I will.
Water?
I'm going to plug the Irish game development scene because it's really small and it's mostly filled with like indie developers. There's like a handful of slightly bigger developers in there. But as part of that, I'm just going to post a Steam curator list from one of our organizations that represents game development in both Twitch and into YouTube. And it includes a list of games that are translated in Irish, games that have been made in the Republic of Ireland, games in Northern Ireland, and some Irish games that are coming soon. One game I want to call out is AXYZ, which just came out recently, which is a puzzle ball rolling retro style game, and by a cool bunch of indie devs here. So please check out that list, and if anything catches your eye, please give it a wish list or so.
Awesome. On my side, I want to plug everyone to find a friend to play Split Fiction with. It's really an incredible game. Talk about creativity. It had me laughing. It had me crying. I strongly recommend finding someone. One person has to own a copy of the game, but we bought 2, my husband and I, because we wanted to support the developer. And it's a really incredible co-op game with a very good story that goes with it. Grab it if you can and definitely play it. My second, Marcin, you look like you have something to add.
Yeah, because I want worth mentioning for that particular developer is all their previous titles have the same concept. So you buy a game and the other copy is free, so you can enjoy with your friend.
Yep.
Which I think is really cool and a great move. So all the past games for that developer do the same concept, which is really great.
Strongly recommend it. I think available on your platform of choice, Split Fiction. And then lastly, gamequality.org has a ton coming up between QualiCon, which is the largest gathering of game quality professionals. Also, we've got a couple of really big announcements about future education opportunities coming with Game Quality Academy, and then some leaders stuff going on as well. I am helping with some of that, so that's my one of my current contracts, and I'm excited to help bring the things that y'all are doing here in Underground Game QA to life as well by working with studios and working with individuals to make sure we're providing excellent spaces for game quality professionals for education, interaction, and sharing. And so it is a little bit more formal and a little bit more professional, but I encourage you to snag a membership if you can. We'll have some scholarships available as always through our community here too, so that if you cannot afford to go to QualiCon, we'll make sure through our scholarship program that you'll be able to get there so that you can get the education and connections that you need.
Go pester even if your company is not part of it. I was happy to bully my previous employers for their QA to get membership, so they can be part of the QualiCon and then have access. Because I think, correct me Jesse if I'm wrong, but if you get the membership, then all the content from the previous you get the access to the video vault, right?
You do. Yes. You
Oh
get
my!
all
And
of the past years.
it's worth it. Like guys, like it's if you can, obviously for an individual it's a steep price, but for a company it's not that big, and the amount of knowledge you get there, like guys, there's some godlike presentations there. Like when I hear that we have and which is also super awesome for the community, a lot of people that did talks are in the community. So either go to QualiCon, the game quality, because all those people that were doing presentations are there, and you can poke their brains. They're also in the community, but by God, somehow get access to that video vault, because you turn instantly into a dragon. You just want to hoard all those videos because they're so great. I kid you not.
Yep. Yes.
I want to call out something real briefly about the QualiCon. It's totally online, because I didn't realize that when I first heard people talking about it. It's a completely online conference. So if you're sitting there going like, oh, I don't know if I want a scholarship to go to some in-person conference, like it is an online conference. I know that's an easier barrier of entry for a lot of folks. So bear that in mind as you're hearing us talk about it.
Yes. Also, if you do want to meet up in person, there is Game Quality Forum happening in Portugal in June, and I'll be there. Some other community members will be there. And so if you can get sponsorship to get there, get there. I wish I had some form of scholarship program to offer. Unfortunately, I don't, because I myself am figuring that out too. So let's try to get together in Portugal if you can. If you can't, we look forward to seeing you at QualCon here in the Discord and anywhere else you can find us on socials. And we want you to be there. We're going to talk about our bug of the cast, which today is a montage of the past 5 years of bloopers created by our very own Marcin. Now, again, let's try not to have a blooper moment, Chelsea, by getting this queued up. Yes, I did refer to myself in the third person. This is not that unusual. Hold, please. Boop. And let's kick it off.
Well, counting myself, I have 4 QA professionals with me today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Why don't we start with Chris or Ariel?
Right.
Ariel, go ahead. I'm a bad host, y'all.
I think the entire process of I said process.
It's like sometimes like Pee-wee's Playhouse in here, where I feel like the secret word gets said. Even though our secret word every week is process.
We were talking about changing tens of thousands of different kinds of items because there were all.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. Ariel disconnected.
Oh no.
I'm sure she'll be back.
Yes. In the meantime,
there we go. Okay.
Okay.
I'll ask you. Okay, so good morning, everyone.
Ariel, you're vibing to your own music because I don't hear the music anywhere.
Sans music because it doesn't want to work. It just hates me. Music hates me. So we're gonna dive right in.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, I didn't get the music cue correct, like usual.
My name's Melissa. You can reach me at VirusQ on Twitter, VIRUSQ, QA at Niantic, and I'm posting cosplay stuff.
Myron, are you playing the outgoing music?
Let me stop it. All right, go for it, Melissa.
Someone that you really wanted to hire, but that person is unable or unwilling to relocate because.
Right, yeah. And that's happened to me this year. Company, what's going on over there? Mm-hmm. There's a statistic of like 80% of jobs not being posted anywhere. Really? Like for me and my experience in Toronto, like that is very real. That is very real.
And as we mature as as QA, oh, there's a huge spider on my desk. As we mature as QA, hold on.
I still think you should just do the entire podcast in that voice, and I will stand by that opinion.
All right. Well, one day maybe when I'm a little less full of sugar and caffeine, maybe we can do like a side episode where I just kind of do ASMR about QA.
There we go.
Just talk about it. It's like proper bug summaries.
Yeah.
Pro steps.
That can be behind the paywall.
There, yes, we'll put that. We'll do a Patreon. Put that on the paywall. Like and subscribe. All right. Well, friends,
what are we talking about today, Chris?
I don't know.
What is your metrics for identifying personal growth in the watermelon ecosystem?
We mainly use feedback from our peers. So we do those sessions when we gather all the people that the person work with in one room, and they give in that meeting feedback to that person. And it's a wonderful atmosphere. It's I wanted to say cult-like, but it's obviously not a cult, but that springs up to my mind for some reason. Hey, welcome everybody. We're live with Underground Game QA podcast about. Oh, sorry, I did my jinx. Of course, there has to be a fail. I forgot to mute myself on stream, so I started hearing myself.
Hopefully, you all can hear this. We can fix it in post. Bye, friends.
We never fixed it in post.
Curran,
we're apparently still on. Apparently,
lies.
Even though I pressed the stop button.
Well, just go. Yeah.
Now you get to see what we're like.
Someone else press?
We just pat ourselves in the back.
Underground QA. Green room after dark.
I know we're still live. My husband is in the background.
Bonus content right here.
Can y'all
it
press
even
the
said
stop button?
you
It's
successfully
not letting me
uploaded.
press it.
Yeah.
Can y'all hear him in the
Start of the year. Yeah, we can hear it.
Please leave us on the podcast recording.
I'm just leaving. Please. We're just gonna leave. We're gonna end the session for everybody. I'll see y'all at the Discord.
Bye.
Okay, start of the year. Awesome. Bye bye.
Wow.
I'm over here crying. Maybe I forgot about that. Oh man, it's been an amazing 5 years, and I'm thankful to all of you for every bit of the support that you've given over the past 5 years. You've seen that we've grown from a small group of people who are goofing off to still a small group of people who are goofing off and love doing this for the community. So that's it for us today, folks. And I want to thank Marcin, David, and Water so much for being here, to Myron, Chris, Ariel, every single other guest that we've had, every person who has helped us to get to this 5 years, Sarah for always being a champion for us on the socials, and anyone else that I'm forgetting, and I apologize profusely for forgetting. Am I forgetting anybody? Help.
No, I think you... Yeah.
Okay. We want to thank you for our volunteers, for every person who's ever posted a chat, a meme, made us laugh, given me bad juju so that I couldn't make the music happen, whatever. I'm thankful for it. We wouldn't be doing this podcast without you. If you have any suggestions for future topics or bugs of the day, we would love to hear them. If you're a QA professional and you want to be on the podcast, or you want to take some time to talk to us through some ideas or have a way to contribute in any way at all, we would love to have you. At any amount you can give. It's a volunteer organization. In any case, please contact us at Underground Game QA Conf. That's CONF, Underground Game QA Conf, because we were once a conference at gmail.com. One day we'll change it, y'all. One day, but not today. You can also reach out to us on X, formerly Twitter, at Underground QA or the Underground Game QA LinkedIn page. We'd love to hear from you and to collaborate. We also have an open Discord server, and you can find a link on all of our social media pages, or always reach out to one of us on our social medias. We'll help get you there. Thanks again for joining us today. Hold on, I forgot the music cue already. Let's go.
Wash your hands.
Thanks again for joining us today. Keep playing, keep testing, and keep washing me a damn hands. Thanks to Congress. I pressed the stop button.
That's gonna be the last word you have said on that episode.